Hello there guys, welcome to my Lulu guide. Before we start, I would like to thank you for all the support you've been showing to my other guides. It makes me really happy to know that people have actually learned things with the videos I've posted. But now, don't forget to put on your thinking caps and let's go! Lulu is a very versatile champion that can be played in almost every role, but this guide is going to focus mainly on support Lulu. As a support, Lulu is one of the best at protecting in the entire game. Her kit, full of CC, was designed to keep enemies away from your carries. She also has tons of damage that she can use to bully her opponents in the laning phase. Lulu's weaknesses include being a team-reliant champion, having no mobility, being squishy, and being a hard champion to play and master. Lulu's passive is Pic's Fairy Companion. Whenever you auto-attack an enemy, Pix will fire 3 bolts at them, enhancing your auto-attack damage. With your abilities, you can send Pix to an ally or to an enemy. When by an ally's side, Pix will increase their auto-attack damage. While on an enemy, Pix will damage and attack them. You can also place it on friendly or enemy minions. Lulu's Q is Glitter Lance. Lulu fires 2 bolts of energy, one from her staff and one from Pix, to damage and slow enemies, minions and monsters. If you hold the cursor closer to Lulu or away from her, you can change the trajectory of her Q. This is an important point because even if you hit the 2 bolts on the same enemy, he will only be affected by 1. Make use of Pix's position to hit more than 1 target, or even to hit a target that is out of your range. Lulu's W is Whimsy. When used on an enemy, it polymorphs them, which means they are transformed into a little critter that can't attack anyone. If used on yourself or on an allied champion, it gives bonus movement speed and attack speed. Lulu's E is Help Pix. Lulu sends Pix to an allied champion, shielding him for 2 seconds. However, Pix will remain by the target's side for 3 additional seconds even after the shield expires. Lulu can also shield herself. When placed on an enemy champion, a monster or an enemy minion, Pix will damage them and reveal them for 5 seconds. Lulu's ultimate is Wild Growth. Lulu makes herself or an allied champion grow, knocking up nearby enemies. While ulted, the target becomes extra tanky by gaining bonus health and gains an aura that slows nearby enemies. When maxing abilities on Lulu, I usually go for E first for the shield, then for W for the polymorph duration, then for Q because it isn't as relevant as the other 2, and I put a point in her R every time I can. If the enemy team has multiple assassins, let's say a Talon mid and a Zed top, I max W first and then I max E. There are champions that have a lot of combos. Lulu isn't one of them. However, the ones she has are still very important to playing her efficiently in-game. Let's start with trade combos. First you auto-attack, then you E, then you auto-attack. You should constantly auto-attack with Lulu because it deals a lot of damage. I E the enemy when I auto-attack to make sure they take all the damage, since the damage from Pix can be intercepted by lane minions. This way, you can bully the enemy AD carry with your passive even if they have a wave protecting them. Auto EQ Aude for a lot of damage. You can also auto and E and shoot the Q to another enemy. You can also E an ally and Q from them. If you E a minion, you can still poke the enemy by shooting the Q from it. It doesn't matter if it's an enemy or an ally minion. Just be careful not to steal CS. This is useful if you need to stay safely behind the wave. If you are scared, polymorph, attack the enemy and run away. You can also shield yourself from damage and auto-attack. Now the all-in combos. Auto attack, W, E, Q, auto attack. You start with W because if they are polymorphed they can't flash away, and that lets your team engage on them for free. When W is about to expire, you slow them with your Q and then just keep on attacking them. Another thing you can do is flash, ult yourself, and then polymorph the enemy and keep them in the slow zone of the ult to lock them down. This can be used, for example, to initiate a gank. Lulu's versatile kit allows her to play very aggressively or very defensively in lane. During teamfights, she has the best single target peel in the entire game. For these reasons, I like to pick Lulu if I have an immobile AD carry that has no escapes, if the enemy bot lane has a weak laning phase and Lulu can poke them a lot, or the enemy team has lots of assassins. If there is one thing Lulu is weak against, is heals. Against the heal lane, you can poke them all you want, but they will always sustain back up. You will eventually run out of mana and their health bars will still be full. Lulu also doesn't do very well against champions that have more range and more damage than her, since they can poke her and she can't poke them. On Lulu, I like to take two different rune pages. Sorcery and Resolve Secondary is my choice if I'm in for a more passive laning phase or if I'm afraid of being bursted down by the enemy team in teamfights. This page consists of Summon Airy, Mana Flow Band, Absolute Focus, Scorch, Bone Plating, Revitalize, 2 Adaptive Force, and 1 Armor. If the enemy team has a heavy AP support, or they have lots of AP in general, I take Magic Resist instead of Armor. Sorcery is hands down the best tree for Lulu. However, you can take Inspiration Secondary instead of Resolve if the enemy bot lane does not scare you. With this setup, you can focus more on cooldown reduction instead of defense for yourself, which benefits your team greatly. This rune page consists of Summon Airy, Mana Flow Band, Absolute Focus, Scorch, Magical Footwear and Cosmic Insight, or Biscuit and Cosmic Insight, 2 Adaptive Force, and 1 Armor. However, you can take Magic Resist instead of Armor if you need. For summoner spells, you always take Flash on Lulu because she is immobile and she needs a way to reposition herself in a fight or to escape bad situations. For the secondary summoner spell, I almost always go Ignite because it greatly increases my kill potential. This is a rare occurrence, but if my lane partner takes anything other than heal, I take heal myself. I avoid taking Exhaust as it was nerfed many times. However, on rare occasions, if I feel like my spells and items combined aren't enough to keep my team alive, I take it. Lulu has the best synergy with hyper carries, AD carries that have very weak laning phases, but that scale super hard with items and become monsters in the late game. Lulu can help them get through their bad early games and keep them alive in teamfights. With that said, Twitch, Jinx, Kog'Maw and Vayne are the best of the best with Lulu. Ashe, Caitlyn and Sivir are all immobile. Sure that Caitlyn has her E, but if an assassin jumps on her, it doesn't do much to help her. Kalista is one of the best champions at kiting in the game. With a Lulu by her side, it's really hard for anyone to catch up to her. The only reason why Tristana and Kai'Sa aren't in the first list, even though they are hyper carries, is because they have actual kill threat in lane. So they have even better synergy with champions like Leona than with Lulu. Draven is a champion that needs to get ahead either in kills or in farm to actually be useful in the game. Now don't get me wrong. Lulu and Draven can be a very oppressive lane, but Lulu lacks the kill threat a champion like Blitzcrank has. So this lane can have two different outcomes. Either they stomp bot lane together and Draven gets a lot of kills or gets really ahead in CS, and then Draven kills everyone and doesn't die because of Lulu's protection, or Draven falls behind and then he is useless in teamfights and Lulu's peel does nothing for him. Varus and Xayah actually have a pretty decent synergy with Lulu. The only reason why they aren't higher on the list is because their ultimates are AoE, and as such, they get along better with a support that also has an AoE ultimate to make a combo, like Rakan or Sona. These AD carries are at the bottom of the list because they use their abilities more than the auto attack. Miss Fortune appreciates Lulu's protection, but Ezreal and Lucian can peel for themselves for the most part. Jhin is immobile and needs peel, but because of the way his auto attacks work, and because he can never build attack speed, he renders part of Lulu's W useless. So like I already said, the best AD carries to pick Lulu against are weak early game AD carries like Kog'Maw and AD carries that have invisibility, because your E grants vision on them. A lane bully AD carry like Draven can be a little too much for Lulu to handle. Twitch and Misfortune can be very dangerous because they can deal a lot of damage from really far away with their ultimates. You can rarely if ever get close to them to exhaust or polymorph, and even if you manage to do so, you are putting yourself in danger. Please keep in mind that how a lane goes depends on your and your AD carry's skill, the enemy's skill, if the enemy jungler is camping you or if your jungler is camping you, if the enemy jungler is an early game jungler or if your jungler is an early game jungler, if the mid and top laner roam to the bot lane, and many other things. So just because I say a certain matchup is easy and another one is hard, it doesn't mean you're always going to win lane against them or lose it. Everything is very generalized and hypothetical, so please take it with a grain of salt. For the most part, these champions should be easy for Lulu to deal with. Rakan and Alistar are both melee, and Lulu can poke them easily. Both have access to heals, but neither of them are significant enough to deny Lulu's poke. It's pretty easy to dodge Rakan's W. But in case they are able to pull off their combos and go in, all you have to do is shield your AD carry, W their AD carry, and then start poking them. At level 6, just ult whoever is being targeted. Even if Janna can damage with her W, your poke is much stronger. In the early game, her shield has an enormous cooldown, so make sure to punish her when it's down. Either way, you can destroy her E easily with your damage. You have two ways of stopping your ult, with your own ult and your W. Even if Janna is a champion that scales really hard in the late game, so do you, and you peel as well as her. Annie and Lux are both mages in the bot lane. You can poke Annie in the early game, and she can't do much about it. Pay attention to her stun, and she'll already carry when she uses it. If she tries to all-in you early, just W her AD carry. At level 6, she shouldn't be able to all-in you because of your ult. Lux's abilities should be pretty easy for you to dodge, and if she can't hit them, she isn't very useful. Your shield is much stronger and more useful than hers, even if hers hits multiple people, and at level 6, if you have your ult up, she can't really one-shot anyone because of the health your ally gains. As long as you don't feed them in the early game, you scale much harder, are more useful, and have better peel. As long as you avoid Bart's stun, laning against him isn't very hard. Both of you have good poke, but you can shield his damage with your E. He has heals, but they aren't that strong. Bart is a roaming champion, so try to either match his roams or stay in lane and zone his AD carry. You can even try to dive him together. Watch out when Bart goes missing all of a sudden, because he can pull off very good ganks with his magical journey. Easy to medium difficulty. Tahm Kench, Braum and Galio are all melee tanks that you can poke easily. However, if they have an aggressive AD carry and they catch you early on with their abilities, they can actually kill you very fast. Aside from that, they have poke of their own that you have to do your best to dodge. Karma's poke is insanely strong, even stronger than Lulu's. Her mantra Q will chunk you really hard from very early levels, and if she hits you enough times with it, she can actually get you guys so low that she can kill you. Stay behind your minions to avoid her normal Q, try your best to dodge her mantra Q, and poke her back when it's on cooldown. If you manage to get through the laning phase, you are a lot stronger in mid and late game than she is. Taric isn't a very strong of a laner as long as you can dodge his stun. His heal isn't very strong in the early stages of the game, and you can poke him easily in his AD carry. His ult is insanely annoying, however, and you will have a very hard time fighting his team in teamfights. Zilean is kind of similar to Taric. His bombs aren't that hard to avoid, and if he lands them you can shield the damage. He is very squishy, and you can poke him easily with your Q and your E. However, his ult is insanely annoying, and it's going to be very hard to kill whoever he chooses to save. Medium difficulty. Nami, in my opinion, is a skill matchup. If she is consistently able to land her Qs, you are going to lose trades against her. Her W is very annoying to deal with because it damages you while healing her and her ally. However, if you manage to poke her and her AD carry a lot, and she has to resort to her healing to stay in lane, she's not gonna have enough mana to be aggressive on you. Plus, she is squishy and immobile, and if you get a jungle gank, you can kill her pretty easily. Sona is very similar to Nami, except that she doesn't have access to hard CC per level 6. Once she gets her ultimate, be careful not to stay in a line with your AD carry so she can stun you both. Nautilus and Thresh have very scary CC, so you have to do your best to dodge their hooks. Once they are on cooldown, as long as you stay at a certain range from them, you can poke them. If your AD carry gets caught, you can help him get away with your abilities. However, if you get hooked, it's going to be a lot harder for you to stay alive unless you flash. So stay behind your minions and play carefully. Leona is very similar to Thresh and Nautilus, except that her E does not get stopped by minions, so you have to be extra careful with her. Do your best to poke her level 1 so she gets low and can't all-in you level 2. At level 6, if she ults your AD carry, you can always ult him, and the knockup will stop the dash from Leona's E. However, once again, if she focuses you, it's going to be a lot harder for you to survive. And now, last but not least, the hard matchups. Vel'Koz and Zyra both outrange you and outdamage you. You need to play carefully and do your best to avoid their abilities. If any of you gets comboed at any point, you're probably going to die, especially at level 6. Blitzcrank is a threat because of his Q. The moment one of you gets pulled, you're probably dead. At level 6, if your AD carry gets pulled, you might be able to keep him alive with your ult, but there are no guarantees. Soraka is a champion with a very strong poke and very strong healing. Damaging her AD carry is useless because she's just going to sustain him back up. The only way to beat this lane is to dodge Soraka's Qs so she can't heal herself and poke her little by little. With a jungle gank, you might be able to focus and kill her. Morgana's Q is an extremely strong route that you have to avoid at all costs, otherwise you're going to get chunked or might even die early on. However, her E is the reason why she counters Lulu. If she lands a good binding on your AD carry and then black shields her AD carry, you're not going to be able to do anything to stop him from damaging yours. There's the same problem in a team fight. If she black shields an assassin and the assassin jumps on your AD carry, you're not going to be able to polymorph him or slow him or anything, and all you can do to help your ally is ult him. And now the new champion Yuumi. Honestly, I don't have a very good idea of how the matchup with this champion will play out yet, but according to what I've seen, she is so incredibly squishy that you might be able to polymorph, ignite and all-in her if she gets out of position in lane. But if she plays it smart, I think she's going to be very annoying to lane against. She's just going to be untargetable the whole laning phase, poke you and your AD carry with her Q, and keep her AD carry healed up with her E. Plus, her ult is going to be game-changing in teamfights. For starting items, Spell Thieves and Health Pots is the best for Lulu. You can also go for Coin, but it's only for lanes where you are terrified of dying like Blitzcrank and Draven. Otherwise, Spell Thieves just gives Lulu a lot more. On my first and second backs, I look to upgrade my gold generating item, buy a refillable potion, boots, and a vision ward. Ardent Sensor is Lulu's core item, so you should almost always finish it first. Never forget to buy a sweepers once you have your wards. Redemption is a great item on Lulu because it increases her shield power and her defense and heals her entire team in skirmishes or teamfights. Athene's gives her AP and mana regen. When upgrading my boots, I almost always go for mobility or Ionian. Mobility is better when you are ahead and you need to roam around the map a lot to help your team. Ionian is better when you are behind and you desperately need CDR. Merc Threat is also viable if they have lots of CC and you are afraid of getting caught. If you want more AP in your build, Morrow is an option if they have lots of champions that rely on heals, for example a Vladimir, a Mundo and a Soraka on the same team. Rabadon's Death Cap really increases your AP. Twin Shadows is good for helping your allies kite and also to scout unwarded areas. Shuralias will give every ally in its range a burst of movement speed and it's good for chasing or escaping. If the enemy team has lots of CC, instead of Athene's, you should go for Mikhail's Crucible, because it can really save your ally from that Thresh hook or that Morgana binding. Zeke's conversions and Knight's Vow are very good if you need armor, and they also empower your AD carry. Locket is not an optimal item on Lulu because it scales with health, and Lulu does not build much of that stat. However, if they have lots of AoE damage, you can buy it. Finishing your gold generating item is also a good option for defense, and you get an extra ward to place down. Speaking of wards, there was a vision ward at the end of each set to remind you to buy one every time you back. One of the most important aspects to the early game is keeping track of the enemy jungler. The first step to doing this is knowing where the jungler started. You can usually discover it by watching the top lane and bot lane and seeing who gets to lane late. But sometimes the players will be sneaky and will both get to lane late just to confuse you so you don't know where the jungler started. However, there is a small trick that you can know to discover who leashed for the jungler. Just look at their mana bar. If they have resources missing, it's probably because they were leashing. This method isn't 100% reliable, because the top laner might have energy instead of mana, for example, but it's a small thing to keep in mind. I usually start with my E, so I can shield myself from my AD carry from poke, or can use it on the enemy AD carry to deal a lot of damage level 1. Then I get my Q, and at level 3 I get my W. If it's a dangerous all-in lane though, like Thresh, I usually go for W second, because I can just W the enemy AD carry or speed up my own AD carry if they try to go on him. In the laning phase, your AD carry's champion, the enemy laner's champions and the junglers will determine whether you play aggressive or passive. However, as Lulu, you should almost always look to play aggressive and poke the enemy AD carry every time it tries to go for a CS. Don't give him any rest, and always be in his face and as annoying as possible. Never forget that you can use the lane minions as gateways for poking the enemy AD carry with your Q. Whenever your AD carry wants to trade, don't forget to shield him so he gets protected from damage and also gets picks to help him in his auto attacks. Keep in mind that Lulu's W is a very powerful spell that you have to be very careful when using. You need to think if you can use it on your AD carry to give him auto attack damage and movement speed when he is trading, or if you need to save it to stop an enemy champion that wants to jump on him. Lulu's Q is a good tool for pushing minions, so when you guys want to back, use your Q on the wave to push it faster. Another thing to never forget is that you have to auto attack a lot with Lulu, because your auto attacks deal a lot of damage thanks to picks. And as always, never forget to look at the minimap every few seconds and keep the map lit up with wards so you don't get ganked. In the early game, you should always try to ward the dragon pit, the river, the dry bush, the enemy jungle if you think it's safe, and the lane bushes if you are expecting the enemy jungler to try to gank you through the lane. The first step to roaming as a support is knowing that you should take the path through the jungle when going back to lane, instead of going straight through the bot lane. Since you end up in a place where you are in between lanes, you can make many different decisions. You can go to the enemy jungle if you deem it safe and place deep wards. You can go straight to the bot lane if you see your AD carry needs you. You can go to the mid lane if you see that you are needed to counter a gank. Or if your jungler is bot side and he's getting invaded, you will be there to aid him. The next thing to know is that your AD carry should never be left alone in lane for a long period of time, especially when he is against someone dangerous like Blitzcrank or Vel'Koz. You should also not roam during cannon minion waves, because the cannon gives you a lot of golden experience, and also if the enemy wave is pushed to your side of the lane, since it will crash against your tower, and if you're not there, you're going to lose all that XP and gold. Another thing to notice in Enchanter is that it's really hard to simply walk up to the mid lane and start the gank by yourself. You don't have the CC someone like Thresh or Leona have, so you have to be very smart about it, about when you roam, and how you execute it. Tank supports do something called proactive roaming, which means they make everything happen on their own. They can plan their route, sweep the river so the enemy doesn't know they are there, walk up to the mid lane, CC the mid laner and get a kill for their team. Enchantment supports, however, do a thing called reactive roaming, which means that they act according to what is about to happen on the map or what is already happening. For example, your AD carry is still at base and you feel like your jungler is about to get invaded. You can just show up and turn the fight around. Or you see that there is a fight going on in the mid lane, you can just run up there and help your team. For example, in this clip, I am coming directly from base, I see that Rengar is having trouble in the mid lane and I run up there to help. I polymorph Jax, shield Rengar and get Fizz a kill. During the mid and late game, one of your jobs is to keep the vision up on the map. Pay attention to the state of the game and ward defensively or aggressively accordingly. Keep track of the jungle spawn timers, Baron and Dragon, and ward around them when there's like 1 minute left for them to spawn. You are a support and you can't 1v1 anyone, so you should never go ward on your own, but if you absolutely have to, be very careful and check the bushes before you enter them, with your Q, because it makes a different sound if you hit someone and if you hit nothing. And of course, don't forget to clear enemy vision around objectives with vision wards and sweeper. In teamfights, your role is to peel for your carries. It should usually be your AD carry, but it doesn't have to be. If he is bad or is very behind and doesn't deal any damage, you can always peel for your jungler, your top laner or your mid laner. Just stick to whoever is the strongest on your team and don't let them die, even if you have to die yourself. A noble sacrifice for a teammate is very good, but never die in vain, so position correctly in teamfights. You have to stay in the backline, near the other squishies, where the enemies can't get you. With a Lulu out of the way, it's really easy for the enemy assassins to dive your backline and kill everyone. For teamfighting successfully as Lulu, you also have to use your abilities correctly and at the right time. If your team is very ahead, you might use your ult on the diver so he gets extra health to tank and can also keep everyone around him slowed. You can also use this technique with a Yasuo on the team to set up his ult. However, most of the times, you should save it to peel for your carries. It makes no sense to ult the Vi that just went in if there is a Diana that can one-shot your Caitlyn. Lulu's ultimate gives a lot of health to the target, so don't save it for when your ally is about to die. Use it before the enemy combos them. Also never forget that the knockup from Lulu's R can stop enemy dashes, jumps and channeled abilities, so use it to ruin your enemy's plays. Lulu's W is also a very crucial ability in a teamfight. You can use it to speed up your allies and to give them attack speed, or to polymorph an enemy so he can't damage your ally. You can literally learn when to use one or the other when you have lots of practice playing Lulu. But there are some situations in which it's easier to choose. For example, your AD carry is being followed by a Sejuani. It's better to give him the movement speed and attack speed so he can kite easier away from her and shred her faster. But if your AD carry is about to be jumped by a Talon, of course it's better to polymorph the assassin so he can't get his combo off. You should almost never use your Q and your E aggressively to damage someone in a teamfight. You should save them for shielding and slowing. After all this, don't forget that you are the team's shot caller. After a one teamfight, rally your team and get the tower and maybe an inhibitor together. If bot lane is pushed or the enemy jungler died, ping Baron and go take it as a team. Check everyone's items including your own, ping cooldowns and pass all the information to your team. That is how you support. Hello there guys! So I hope you enjoyed my Lulu guide. Thanks for all the support you've been showing to my other guides and to my channel in general. Thank you so much for 800 subscribers. And I hope you guys learned something with this. I hope it isn't too long or boring. Anyway, if you liked it, leave a comment, share, like, and subscribe if you haven't already. And I see you next time. Bye everyone!